But first, weeks ago when allegations broke that a young female staffer, Brittany Higgins, was raped inside Parliament House, it was an issue that cut through in a way that few do. Beyond those routinely interested in Canberra, what Brittany Higgins alleged happened to her became something talked about in the homes of ordinary Australians, in schools, and importantly, woman to woman. At the time, I knew this would hurt the government. The handling of Higgins then and now, and the 2 years in between, has been a masterclass in what not to do. At best, it's been grossly insensitive. At worst, it's been about trying to manage an issue rather than supporting a young woman desperately in need of help. And it's been everything we wouldn't want to see any woman suffer. Not our sisters, not our daughters, not our friends. Those backroom spinners who tried to claim last fortnight's Better News poll showed the public weren't interested in this issue failed to understand what I said here at the time, that most polls are a lagging indicator, that if the Prime Minister didn't get on top of the issue, he would bear the consequences. Well, today he has. A shocking news poll result is evidence of that failure. A set of numbers that, if delivered on an election day, would see Labor win in a landslide, even with Anthony Albanese as leader. Brittany Higgins is not Grace Tame, the Australian of the Year sexually abused by her teacher. It's not the same either as the 3 decades-old claims against a then 17-year-old Christian Porter. But they all collide in the public debate to make the issue of women and their treatment very difficult ground for the coalition to navigate. In the case of Higgins, more women in Parliament is important, but somewhat simplistic. After all, Higgins had her case handled by 3 coalition women over the time: the Defence Minister, Linda Reynolds, Reynolds Chief of Staff, Fiona Brown, and her later employer, Jobs Minister, Michaelia Cash. And she was still let down. The coalition, too, for 11 years had a female deputy leader in Julie Bishop. And what did Bishop achieve? Indeed, I have to say she said more about women in politics after she's left the Parliament than when she was there, and could do something about it. For staff, it's as much about how we are treated as servants and second-class citizens. It's about power as much as it is an issue of gender. The whole upstairs, downstairs rubbish perpetuated by some ministers and MPs. Don't think that only women are the victims here either. I dealt with an issue one time of a male staffer sexually harassed via late-night text messages from a male MP. A male MP, I might add, supposedly happily married in the suburbs with a wife and kids. I read the texts, and while the staffer refused to make a formal complaint, when I confronted the MP later on, I copped a nasty barrage via one of his favoured columnists the next week. Credlin this, they said, Credlin that, from a so-called Liberal source. A not so subtle threat to know my place and to shut up. I want to hope that the upcoming review into staff treatment at Parliament House brings about change. But we all need to understand that today's marches around the country were more than just what goes on in Parliament House. This is an issue that is now being used as an effective political weapon against the Morrison government. The organisers accepted an invitation from the PM to speak with him about their concerns on the weekend, but then rejected it this morning.
I stress again, apolitical. This is not about any political party at all. It is an inclusive event.
That was the organiser of today's protest, Janine Hendry. She claims she is not playing politics, but let's just have a look at some of her recent Twitter outbursts. She writes, "My day is not even over and I'm in despair, total and utter despair at the sheer ruthless incompetence of this government. Hashtag Scotty the rapist protector. Hashtag Ozpol so corrupt." In another post she writes, "It remains inconceivable that any woman who valued herself would even consider voting for the LNP." In response to a tweet reading, and I'll quote, "Rachel Baxendale is to journalism what the pressure stocking is to fashion," Ms Hendry tweeted, yes, an accurate description. All about the I Stand With Dan crowd. And again, in response to a tweet labelling Victorian Liberal MP Tim Smith a four-letter expletive, Hendry tweeted, excellent. But most telling of all is that Hendry has been an activist looking for a cause for some time, a cause that she wants to use to bring down the Prime Minister and his government. Look at this tweet from the 21st of January, so long before any issues surrounding women and sexual assault broke. Hendry says she wants to create a US-style Lincoln project for Australia. She writes, and I quote, "We need a Lincoln project team for Australia if we're truly going to get the message of hashtag Scotty from marketing and his lackeys in competence, lies and rorting out there. We need to get organised," she says. "Hit me up with your ideas," says Hendry. "We need cash, leadership and a band of creatives." 1,200 likes and over 300 retweets. And here we are today. Marches around the country, plenty of union flags amongst the signs, and a question time where Labor had plenty of fire in its belly about an issue where they know the coalition has already lost a lot of skin. You can understand now, can't you, why the PM was between a rock and a hard place today. Fronting a crowd that was driven by a woman who was looking for an anti-Morrison campaigning vehicle a couple of months ago or more, was never going to see the PM get a fair go. But no doubt Morrison was also mindful, or I want to hope he's mindful, that this is an issue where he and his government have made a lot of mistakes and must be seen to listen and urgently do better. Inviting the organisers to his office was the best way to go, and what genuine organiser wanting change would pass up the opportunity to speak to the leader of our country in the highest office in the land? None would. Only those that wanted to use this issue as a stunt would refuse, which is why Hendry's decision to reject the PM's offer exposes the politics behind these marches. Now, as a woman, I don't know about you, but I'm angry tonight. I'm bloody angry tonight that such an important issue is being used for partisan politicking. Every woman in Australia should be able to support today's march. Every woman in this country owns this issue. Every woman is right, and we have the right to demand safer streets, safer workplaces, the right to feel as comfortable in the dark as we might feel in the daylight. This is now an issue hijacked deftly by a few that should be an issue owned by us all. I hope I'm not the only person in the media who calls out Hendry's political attacks tonight, but I doubt there'll be many. And it doesn't diminish in any way my support for change. I support Brittany Higgins. I want to see the system reformed for parliamentary ministerial staff. I think the minister who handled her case initially, Linda Reynolds, I think she should go. That doesn't mean I'm going to stand by tonight and let the likes of Janine Hendry get away with using staff as her battering ram against the Prime Minister, having never walked in a staffer's shoes. As Labor staffers who broke their silence today have shown, how politicians treat their staff is a problem on both sides of politics. Well, actually, three sides. Let's include the Greens there as well. And maybe now, with it all finally out in the open, we're going to see some real change. I listen to all the activists and the commentators and the journalists who have never lived the staffer's life for even one moment, posture their views, and it makes me angry. Because unless you've been there, you have no idea what it's like to work in one of the toughest yet most rewarding jobs you will ever do. This is a moment in time. It's an issue for women across the political divide, in the Parliament House building and outside it. And it's an issue for women that is far too important to be used to score a political hit.